Hello guys, I'll talk about how to be critical about your figure or data. Many people experienced working conditions like the supervisor tells the guy do this, and then the guy makes it and then come back. In many areas, the research practice is like that, but not in ours. In our research, we do basic science, and the basic science is different from all other practical studies because we are trying to understand something that's not known. And we have to be extremely suspicious of our experiment because we may very easily misinterpret our results. And in basic science, it's very important to say something very robustly, at least from two disciplines. You should provide evidence from different disciplines, from multiple views, as many evidence as possible, as many direct evidence as possible. So instead of saying a lot in basic science, it's much more better to say something less, but more robust. So basically, how we design experiments always have the same style. First, we have a known part. So we test something that's already known for sure. And second, we test something that is not known. And we have to always consider what is known in our experiment holds true or not before coming to the second. So let me show you with an example. In this figure, the question was, are the mutants, VTC mutants, less or more tolerant to iron deficiency compared to wild type? And the thing we look for the signal of iron deficiency tolerance or response, let's say, was ferric reductase activity. So we measure the ferric reductase activity of wild type and the mutant under iron sufficient and iron deficient conditions. And the student said, no, VTC mutants behave very similar to the wild type. It looks so, right? Okay, so then this was the very first check of the hypothesis, and we could easily dump the hypothesis. But now let's employ what I told to you in the first part of the video. So is the known part holds true for our experiment? So what's the known part? We know how ferric reductase activity changes under iron deficiency for wild type. We know it for sure. We have it in the literature and so on. So I open here an article. I examine how the wild type ferric reductase activity changes under iron deficiency. And here, for the wild type, you see the reductase activity is increased probably like 3 times. Okay, coming back to my result, I compare the known parts, so this wild type and this. So the increase, in fact, there is no increase. I think it's not significant because the error bars, they should have been 2 sides and they are overlapping. Even if they were not overlapping, it was less than 2-fold. So definitely this figure is not in agreement with the literature, what is known. Therefore, we cannot trust that. There is something wrong here for sure. Okay. So the questions we need to ask always is, did the controls work? Second, are the controls enough? What else could have been controlled here? So we could put a mutant, which we know is always iron deficient, and see if the reductase activity increases, for example. This is what we expect. Or we could put like fit mutant, which is not responsive to iron deficiency. So then the fit mutant should have this equal amount of ferric reductase activity in both conditions. These can be like additional controls, like positive and negative controls. I think I'll give you more details on negative and positive controls later. Yes, and are these things in agreement with literature? So when the guy repeated the experiment, then he found something else. He found here that the wild type now is really increased under iron deficiency. Still, the extent is not that much. And now the VTC mutants, they seem to have lower reductase activity, or maybe a little lower. It's still not that strong. And but despite the iron deficiency, even under iron sufficiency, the mutants seem to have lower ferric reductase, but only a little bit. So here the controls seem to work, but we are still not sure because this is only 2 times maybe. In the literature we saw 3 times. So what we can do right now is to go back to the literature, the other papers. What is like, how much is this increase normally? Okay. Yes. So these are the things we have to do. We should be very suspicious about our figures. And what else we can do is we have to repeat every figure that seems to be working at least twice. So this will answer the question, is it repetitive? Okay. And lastly, what we should do is we have to, if we find something, we have to give this experiment to procedure to someone else, not us, but someone else should do the experiment with his own hand, and we should see if he can repeat it as well. So if he can also repeat it, so an independent guy can also repeat it in an independent time, then we can be pretty sure what we found new is really something new. Otherwise, no. So this is how to be critical about your data. This is very basic level of criticism, being critical. So you can do much more on that, but just achieve that for the moment, please.